Hello friends! It's so good to have you here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Max and my pronouns are they, them, and I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day wherever you are. Today we're going to be talking about 24 books that I am excited to read in 2024. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are just a selection that I'm particularly excited about right now. Bear in mind, I am a massive mood reader, so these things change on the daily. If you haven't already, please feel free to pause this video and grab yourselves a nice cup of hot tea, coffee or hot chocolate, and let's get into it. Oh, I forgot to cheers. Cheers. Today I've made myself a chocolate orange flavoured mocha. One of my major downfalls is flavoured coffee and it's in this beautiful Tesco mug, which I'm just obsessed with. It has, I think these are ginkgo leaves. I just think it's so pretty and I love the weird shape of it. Anyway, let's get into the books. Okay, firstly, this is a trilogy that I've been meaning to read for ages, and that is the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I got this out from the library, as you might be able to tell because of the plastic covering, but I actually purchased Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom a month or so ago, not realising that it's probably a good idea to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy before diving into these two. I believe you can read them without having read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but apparently it makes it a better experience if you've already read those three books. So they're my first three on the list. I think I'm gonna make a video soon organising all of these books on my windowsill because I don't have any storage for my books right now because I'm not in a permanent living situation, but I really need to go through and organise these a little bit because they're just so chaotic, just balanced on here. So let me know down below if you'd like to see that video. Next we have Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I'm just hyped about how interesting this looks to read. I just feel like it's going to be so much fun. It's a sci-fi and it's set in the year 2575 about two mega corporations that are at war over a planet that's little more than an ice-covered speck. And I just think, well, I hope that it's going to be a really immersive, exciting read. And obviously you know how I feel about the super floppy books. Next we have a super hyped one that I am totally behind on, but I don't believe that as a concept. Like, if people were hyping about a book 10 years ago and you're only just reading it, that's cool. We don't all have to be on the same bandwagons all the time. But this year I'm intending on reading The Atlas 6. I just feel like this is going to be something that's totally up my street. From what I know of it, it has kind of dark academia, secret society type of vibes, which when I'm consuming any type of content, whether it's books or TV shows or movies, I love that shit. On the back it says 6 extraordinary I can't speak today. 6 extraordinary magicians, 5 chances to win, 1 secret society. So I'm intrigued. Next is one that I'm super excited about. I feel like I'm going to say that for every book though, and I feel like I always say that whenever I talk about books, but that is The Shattered Lands by Brenna Nation. This is a fantasy that is well, I think it's more like a romantasy. I'm not sure how much of a part the romance plays in this story. I'm assuming quite a big part because it's on the cover, but this is a female-female romance fantasy. And honestly, one of the things that's on my mind so much at the moment when I watch Booktube content is how much of the fantasy that we are reading that is like heterocentric. And it honestly just, I'm at the point where it bothers me because I feel like the voices of those marginalised relationships aren't being spoken about, and there's not much exposure to that on BookTok or on Booktube. People just aren't talking about, or at least I've not experienced many people talking about books where there's a bit more of a diverse range of relationships. I feel like all of the fantasy and all of the romantasy that's really hyped on Booktube and BookTok is really heteronormative. And yeah, it is starting to bother me a little bit that there's not as much diverse representation that's talked about. So in a bid to change that, one of the books that I really want to read is Shattered Lands. Also, if you have any recommendations of romantasy books or even fantasy with like a romance subplot that is not a hetero relationship, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your recommendations. Next we have one that is a little bit more out of left field, and that is Entangled Minds by Dean Radin. This is so random, but I purchased this for my dad years ago. I don't remember if I've talked about it already on my channel or not, but it's a good floppy, and it basically talks about quantum reality and about how linked things actually are, whether things are actually as linked as we suspect that they might be in terms of quantum physics. The back first paragraph says, "Is everything connected? Can we sense what's happening to loved ones thousands of miles away? Why are we sometimes certain of a caller's identity the instant the phone rings? Do intuitive hunches contain information about future events? And is it possible to perceive without the use of the ordinary senses?" I don't know, like quantum mechanics and quantum physics is just something that is extremely interesting to me, and I would love to understand more about. So I'm definitely hyped about this. The next one that I think I'd like to read is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. Now, I just recently finished City of Bones, which is the first book in the Mortal Instruments trilogy, I believe, and this is book 2. I found City of Bones slightly problematic for a couple of reasons. There are a lot of characters to absorb in City of Bones, and it's like the introduction to the world, so you're just consuming a lot of information basically. And it's a really cool world, and I love the concept, which is why I think I want to carry on with the series. I've got like the whole Mortal Instruments and Internal Devices series here. By major coincidence, the entire thing, apart from the first one, which is on the top, City of Bones, I found randomly in a charity shop, so I got them all for like £1 each. Anyway, I think I'm going to carry on with the series, but the issues that I have with it are, there's a couple of times where homosexuality is referenced, and it's kind of spoken about within the context of it being a negative thing, or I think there's a few things that are said by certain characters that can come off a bit misogynistic. There's just a few bits here and there where a character says something and I'm like, oh, that's a questionable thing to say. And it really turned me off at moments, but I'm gonna bear with it because I like the world and the concept is really cool. And I found myself after City of Bones wanting to read more, wanting to know like what happens next in the story. So this is going to be probably one of the books that I read in 2024. The next one I've talked about before, and another one that is majorly hyped, is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. My sister bought this for me for Christmas, and it's, I think, the last book that she bought for me for Christmas that I haven't read yet. So I'm really excited to get to this. I've heard so many good things about it, and I'm just really interested to see how like this relationship between two people is handled across such an expanse of time. Like I'm pretty sure it goes across their lifetime together, or not necessarily together, but their lifetime interacting in and out of each other's lives, which is, I think is so cool. I'm losing my breath, I need to slow down. It says, this is the story of Sam and Sadie. It's not a romance, but it is about love. When Sam catches sight of Sadie at a crowded train station one winter morning, she is catapulted back to the brief time they spent together playing as children. Their unique spark is instantly reignited. I also know that this has elements of games and building games and stuff like that in this book, because I believe they both do that as a job at some point, and that really intrigues me because I love playing games. So I will be getting to this in 2024. Next we have a children's book, which is the Dalamark Quartet. I believe it's middle grade, and it's by Diana Wynne Jones. I've never read any Diana Wynne Jones before, and I'm excited because Diana Wynne Jones is the very famous British novelist who wrote Howl's Moving Castle. I've seen the film of Howl's Moving Castle, but I haven't read the book, but I've heard such incredible things, and I found this in the works on sale for like £1.25, so I picked it up immediately. Also, it says on the front, the best writer of magic there is, from Neil Gaiman. So I was sold immediately. On the back it says, Maril looked at the 6 men. Each wore a sword in a leather scabbard and he did not like the way the hilts looked smoothed with frequent use. Clennon and his family earned their living as wandering musicians, travelling to the towns of Dalamark in their colourful cart. With warring earldoms and spies everywhere, few move between north and south, and Clennon often carries news and sometimes a passenger. Who is the mysterious Ciaran, and who has joined them on this journey? Is he connected to the sudden violence that overtakes them on their travels? I see a bunch more books on the back here, so I think this must be a 4-parter series. And I'm really getting into middle grade, like adventure type books at the moment, so I'm excited about this. Next, we have 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I found this in a charity shop for £2. I saw it on the top shelf and I was immediately like, I was thrilled. So Holly Jackson is the author of the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which I adore. And this is her next YA thriller that came out, I believe, in 2022, but I'm super excited to get to this. I'm waiting for the right moment. The blurb says, Red Kenny is on a road trip for spring break with 5 friends. Red's best friend, her older brother, his perfect girlfriend, a secret crush, and a classmate. When their RV breaks down in the middle of nowhere, they soon realise that this is no accident. They have been trapped by someone out there in the dark, someone who clearly wants one of them dead. I think I would get into this now if I wasn't already in the middle of a book.
3 hours later.
Hey friends, so the lighting is very different now, as you can tell, but it's been a couple of hours. I had lunch and then I had a call with a friend, but we're back. It is 4:20 here in England right now, and I'm so happy that it's not dark yet. I'm recording this on the 24th of January, and I feel like now it's really getting noticeable that the days are getting longer, even though they started getting longer about a month ago. But it feels so good just to have that tiny little bit more of daylight. So the next book that I really want to read in 2024, and actually it's one that I want to finish because I've already started it, is Unmasked by Ellie Middleton. So this was a highly anticipated release for me. It came out last year, I think in October or November, and I am on page 66. So Unmasked is a book about neurodivergence, mainly autism and ADHD, and the ultimate guide to those things. So on the back it says, whether you are neurodivergent, suspect you might be, or want to be a better ally, Unmasked will help you make sense of it all and put the power in your hands. And it's really good so far, really informative, really validating. So I'm excited to carry on with this. And just look at this cover, it's so beautiful. I just love these colours, so eye-catching. The next book that I want to read in 2024 is a reread for me. I read it a few years ago, and then I read it at the very beginning of 2023, and I want to read it again, and that is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I've been searching for a copy of this because when I read it originally, I listened to the audiobook, and then last year when I read it, it was a copy that was lent to me. So I found this the other day in a charity shop, and I was chuffed. If you don't know Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, it is a book about living creatively and about creativity in general, about inspiration, about creative process, and I love it. And I really want to re-experience the inspiration that it gives me because creativity is always a priority, so this book is always a good one to come back to. On the back it says, readers of all ages and from all walks of life have drawn inspiration from Elizabeth Gilbert's books for years. Now this beloved author digs deep into her own generative process to share her wisdom and unique perspective on creativity. It's great. If you haven't read it before, would highly recommend, especially if you're a creative person. On the same topic, we have The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I have already started this. I got this from my bestie for Christmas and I'm absolutely loving it so far. It's basically just full of gems on the same topic as Big Magic about creativity and creative process and creative living. Next is one that I recently got out of the library that I hadn't seen before, and it is The Stargazers by Harriet Evans. This drew my eye, this cover, as soon as I spotted it, so I had to read the blurb. It's the 1970s and Sarah has spent a lifetime trying to bury memories of her childhood. The constant fear, the horror of her school days, and Fane, the vast crumbling house that was the sole obsession of her mother Idris, a woman as beautiful as she was cruel. Sarah's solace has been her cello and the music that allowed her to dream, transporting her from the bleakness of those early years into her new life with her husband Daniel in their safe, if slightly chaotic, Hampstead home, and with a constant career that has brought her fame and a restored sense of self. The past, though, has a habit of creeping into the present, and as long as Sarah tries to escape, it seems the pull of her mother, Fane Hall, and the secrets hidden there cannot be suppressed, threatening to unravel the fragile happiness she enjoys now. Sarah will need to travel back to Fane to confront her childhood and search for the true meaning of home. There's a little quote review from Marianne Keyes on the front, and it says, "Immersive, engrossing and ultimately beautiful." And I think that just solidified it for me, because the blurb just sounds such an intriguing story, but at the same time I think / hope this will also be beautiful writing. Next we have two that are very hyped on BookTok. The first being Serpent and Dove. This is chunky. I believe it's a duology and it's fantasy, about 520 pages long, and it's not very floppy, so I know I'm going to end up breaking this spine, which is already slightly upsetting to me. I don't usually like breaking spines anymore. I used to love breaking spines when I was a kid because it made the books look like they were more read, but now I just love preserving the beauty of a book, and for me that means that I'm not the biggest fan of breaking a spine. But I am intrigued about this book because I really enjoy fantasy, but at the same time it doesn't have a proper blurb on the back. But this is what it says. Bound as one to love, honour or burn, a witch and a witch hunter thrust into holy matrimony. There was only one way such a story could end. A stake and a match. Which isn't really giving me much. I am slightly concerned that this will be another one of the really heteronormative fantasy books that are slightly irritating me at the moment, but we shall see. I'm pretty sure I've said this before in a video, but I'm not like against heterosexual relationships in books. I think it's more just about the fact that I'm not seeing myself represented in very many at all popular fantasy books, or popular books of any genre. The next one that is obsessed over on TikTok is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I do actually believe there is some queer representation in this book, but I think it might be a side character. I'm not sure on that though. So this is another fantasy, and I found out about this years ago and it has been on my list, and I found it for very cheap in the works a few months ago. I think it might be YA as well, actually. Yes. And it's a series. Some legacies are meant to be broken. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Brie Matthews wants to escape. A residential programme for bright high schoolers seems like the perfect opportunity, until she witnesses a magical attack her very first night on campus. I feel like this is going to be really gripping, and I feel like I'm going to enjoy the magic systems in this book. Next, I have two books about writing, and if you've seen my last video you will know what they are, and they are Philip Pullman's Demon Voices and Stephen King's On Writing. I have spoken in my last couple of videos about how I really want to prioritise a sustainable writing practice this year, and I really want to explore the joy that I get from writing and reconnect to that. And Philip Pullman is an author that I really love, and Stephen King is a writer that I really value, so I'm really intrigued to hear what these authors have to say about the actual writing process and the craft of writing. Funnily enough, I also have fiction books on this list from both of those writers. So we have Stephen King's Billy Summers and Philip Pullman's The Subtle Knife. Billy Summers is one that has intrigued me for a while because although I really don't read very much Stephen King because thrillers are not my usual go-to genre, I've heard that Billy Summers is kind of not so much in the thriller genre and is a bit more genre diverse for Stephen King, so I'm really intrigued to read this. I think it has a bit more of like a mystery crime feel to it. It says Billy Summers is a killer for hire. He's among the best snipers in the world, a decorated Iraq war vet who can blend into any neighbourhood and disappear after the shot is taken. But he'll only agree to a contract if the target is a truly bad guy. I just think that's such an interesting concept already. Now Billy wants out, but first he's offered one final job an offer which is just too big to refuse. So it sounds like something really different for Stephen King, and I think that's why it intrigues me. But also, I'm grateful for the opportunity to read some Stephen King that isn't thriller. Then Philip Pullman's The Subtle Knife is the second book in the His Dark Materials trilogy. I recently reread Northern Lights, which is the first book in this series, and I also recently read The Book of Dust Part 2, but I'd really like to continue my reread of the His Dark Materials trilogy because it's just a trilogy that I love, and I lost my original copies of these 3 books. So I recently found this for really cheap secondhand. I think I originally read these books when I was a teenager, and so it's really nice to get back into this world as an adult. So I'm looking forward to this. Next we have The Spirit Engineer by A.J. West. This is one, again, as you can probably tell from the plastic cover, that I picked up from the library. I just spotted it and this cover and how beautiful it is really just stood out to me. It says, Belfast 1914. 2 years after the sinking of the Titanic, high society has become obsessed with spiritualism, attending seances in the hope they might reach their departed loved ones. William Jackson Crawford is a man of science and a skeptic, but one night, with everyone sitting around the circle, voices come to him, seemingly from beyond the veil, placing doubt in his heart and a seed of obsession in his mind. Could the spirits truly be communicating with him, or is this one of Kathleen's parlour tricks gone too far? I've never heard of this author, but I think that this might be a really cool read. It also has really beautiful illustrations for the beginning of each part. I think there are 4 parts in this book. It's not each chapter, but each part there's like a really cool illustration. Yeah, I'm intrigued about this one. Then lastly, we have 2 semi-illustrated middle grade books, and they are Guardians of Magic by Chris Riddell, and this is the first book in the Cloud Horse Chronicles, and The Song from Somewhere Else by A.F. Harold, illustrated by Levi Pinfold. The Chris Riddell one, both of these I found in a charity shop. So the Chris Riddell one just caught my eye immediately because I know Chris Riddell as an illustrator and have never read his writing. I believe he has quite a few middle grade books, but I've never read from him. I actually read his illustrated version of Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, and it made it such a more immersive experience with Chris Riddell's illustrations. Anyway, so the blurb says, meet the Guardians of Magic. Zam, Phoebe and Bathsheba, 3 children who don't know yet how powerful they are. In a place where fairy tales don't behave, enemies of magic are working together to destroy it. Unless the 3 brave guardians fight back and believe in the impossible, soon magic and the mysterious cloud horses will be gone. Oh, I didn't realise this, but it says Chris Riddell, the 2015 to 2017 UK Children's Laureate. That's cool. So the Cloud Horse Chronicles is a children's adventure series, so I'm excited to get to this. And then The Song from Somewhere Else says, sometimes you find friendship where you least expect it. The last person Frank wants to be rescued by is Nick Underbridge. No one likes Nick. He's big, he's weird, and he smells, or so everyone in Frank's class thinks. And yet there's something nice about him and the strange music that plays in his house. Something that makes Frank feel happy for the first time in forever. But there's more to Nick and to his house than meets the eye, and soon Frank realises she isn't the only one keeping secrets. Or the only one who needs help. A story about strangeness, strength, and keeping the shadows at bay. I just think it sounds like it's going to be a really lovely story, and the illustrations seem really artistic and expressive and very different from anything else I feel like in terms of illustrations of children's books. Very cool. So that is my 24 books that I want to read in 2024. Thank you so much for joining me today, friends. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button because it really helps me, especially if you enjoy my videos. If you have any 2024 book recommendations for me, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!